Okay, the Brisbane Broncos have sacked Kevin Wlters after 4 seasons in charge. He was appointed following the sacking of Anthony Seibold in the wooden spoon season of 2020, so he came in fresh in 2021. There was minor improvement in the 2021 season from where they were. They finished 14th overall with 16 points, so they weren't great, but they were better than in 2020. 2022, the season started really, really well. They were doing really well before the Origin period. They were sitting top of the NRL ladder on round 17. They ended up finishing ninth. They got 28 points in total. They missed out on the top 8, but they just fell apart towards the end of the 2022 season. So when 2023 rolls around and they end up making the grand final and finish second overall with 42 points, a lot of fans felt they had turned a corner. They had turned a corner and that they were going to be a regular top 8 finisher. They were going to regularly be battling for the top 4 even, minor premierships, grand finals. The way they lost that grand final, I think, hurt them. They were in a controlling position, and then Nathan Cleary, produced a masterclass with Jack Cogger helping him out in the second half of that game in the last 20 or so minutes, and flipped the game on its head with the biggest ever comeback in grand final history, and that hurt a little bit. But the promising signs were there. It had taken a slow burn, and the promising signs were there. With that grand final appearance they give Kevin Wlters a contract extension until 2026. They extend him. 2024 basically is a mirror of 2022. And their form towards the end of the season was diabolical, very similar to 2022. The points at the end of the season, very similar. They actually had 2 less points this season than in the 2022 season, where they had 28 points. They had 26 points this season. A massive drop-off of where they were last year with 42 points. They've had the post-season review, and Kevin Wlters is gone. He's gone. Very similar to Anthony Seibold and what happened there. And again, the Wayne Bennett era. There's a lot of issues lingering from the Wayne Bennett era. Now, Anthony Seibold brought some of the young players on, and then Kevin Wlters had them as the core of his team. So the core of this team hasn't changed in the time Kevin Wlters has been there, and I think that's part of the problem. There is more than just the coach at fault here. You could argue some of the contracts that have been given to Adam Reynolds and Reece Walsh are problematic. Reynolds has missed a lot of this season with injury, which has impacted the side. Reece Walsh, that contract is like a lead weight. In a salary cap era in the league, that contract for Reece Walsh is a problem. 2023, he was brilliant, fantastic. This season, no. It just hasn't really been great with Reece Walsh this season. And there's a lot of people pointing at that contract. He's paid too much. He's only had the one really good season. He's had flashes in his entire NRL career, but only one really good season. And there's still a few question marks about certain aspects of his game, especially defensively in his game. And sometimes his emotions get the better of him. He's just still a very raw player. But do I have some sympathy for Kevin Wlters? I did say when he was appointed, he wouldn't necessarily, superstar players or club legends doesn't always work in a coaching role or a managerial role. And in the 4 seasons, only making finals once, I think is a problem. And the way that 2024 almost mirrored 2022 is a problem. But then you've also got to ask the question about the board and that contract extension. They're paying him some compensation now. They're paying him out for 2 years rather than 1. It's going to cost the Broncos some money. It's going to be interesting to see who they get in to replace him on a full-time basis going forward. That's going to be very, very interesting to see who is the full-time replacement for Kevin Wlters. There's not a lot of coaches available out there who are available, who can step in. Obviously, Wayne Bennett's not available because he's going back to South Sydney. So there's not a lot of available head coaches to go into a club the size of Brisbane with the expectation of the fan base. But they have been lacking in success since their last premiership win in 2006. They've only made the grand final twice. In that time, they've missed it. They've missed the top 8 a fair few times, including 3 out of the last 4 seasons. Well, 4 out of the last 5 if you count their wooden spoon season. So it's going to be an interesting one to see who his replacement is. But the Broncos, you have to ask questions of the board giving him that contract extension. You have to ask questions of the board with their roster management, and that includes Kevin Wlters and others in the footballing department. With their roster management, they let some key players go after 2023. Herbie Farnsworth, obviously, is now at the Dolphins, and while the Dolphins missed the top 8, they were still in it right up until the final game of the season, where Brisbane had already shot their bolt and were clearly not going to make the top 8 by that point. They miss Herbie Farnsworth. You have to ask questions over their salary cap and their cap management. Cobbo or Tony Staggs looks likely one of those two is going to be leaving the club. They won't be able to retain both of them under the cap. The Adam Reynolds contract, considering his age, and he is starting to become more injury prone. He's missed a lot of time, and he's clearly part of the leadership group. Is he who's going to be the long-term captain after Reynolds retires? And how much longer can Adam Reynolds continue playing? That's a big question mark. So there's a lot of questions that need answering, but the results speak for themselves. 3 out of 4 seasons under Kevin Wlters, they've missed the top 8, and that's 4 out of the last 5 seasons, including a wooden spoon, where they've missed finals. So there's a lot of issues here. Some of the issues predate Kevin Wlters. They predate Anthony Seibold. We're going back to the second time in charge of Wayne Bennett. So Wayne Bennett's second spell as head coach at the club. There are still issues there. So we'll see what happens going forward, but Kevin Wlters is now out of a job and Brisbane are looking for a new head coach. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts on the sacking of Kevin Wlters in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.